Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Cyber People podcast. Tonight we are delighted to welcome Grant McKechnie. Grant, I could tell everyone all about you, but they didn't come here to listen to me. They came here to listen to you. So who are you, Grant, and what do you do?
Grant McKechnie, obviously, that was the first part that we both can agree on. I'm a CISO. I'm actually a CISO in between opportunities. So I'm currently looking for my next gig. Previously, just a couple of weeks ago, I left after 4 years the Endeavour Group. You might know Endeavour Group as Dan Murphy's, BWS, Langton's, quite a big organisation. And I was CISO for that group for 4 years, moving through the merger from Woolworths, merger with ALH Group, and then building a function from scratch.
Wow, you fit a lot into a short space of time. It would be great if we could unpack that. But before we do that, Grant, one of the kind of key drivers for doing this podcast was not just to showcase the extraordinary men and women of the Australian cybersecurity industry, but also to inspire those outside, perhaps contemplating a career in cybersecurity. So to that end, would you mind sharing with us how you found yourself in cybersecurity and how you ended up being a CISO and why you want to continue being one?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a journey. I think that's the best thing for me. I used to work at Chase Manhattan Bank in London as a systems administrator. I'm not even certain we still have those. We were working and one day and we had a bit of a problem, and these group of suited individuals came in and fixed the problem when they left. And I was like, who are those people? They're the digital security guys, and they were here because we had a problem. And from that moment on, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be that guy that walked in and left, and everything was good again. So after a bit of to and fro with the CISO of BP, I think I annoyed him enough. He took me on, John Knowles, an absolute stellar individual. And from there, my journey started. Because I was an infrastructure specialist, I being a systems administrator, I started building some security infrastructure for BP. And the remit was just make it secure. I didn't really appreciate what I'd taken on, 400,000 people, every country in the world effectively. And there was no view on vulnerability. So I picked that on the first thing to start with. And we built this really innovative vulnerability management system. Remembering this was 2001. Vulnerability management wasn't even a thing yet. Tenable security was in its first few years, and you scanned things, and that's basically all we did. And we built that, and we had a bit of success there, and we went on to build more. I ended up being 7 years at BP in their cyber crew, both based in the UK and Australia. Came back to Australia after an addition to our family, and ended up working at IBM for a little while. Went out on my own. Didn't enjoy that. Went and worked at IBM, was there for a while, and then I joined NAB. And NAB is where I probably learned the trade craft that I use every day as a CISO now. Not because it was a senior position, but because it was taking business needs, business requirements, and translating them into cybersecurity requirements, controls, things like that. After 5 years, I left there. I'm getting close to 40. I'm starting to wonder what I'm really going to do, because the way I view cyber, it was my hobby. I get to do every day. A great thing my father used to say is, find your hobby, make some money out of it, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I've been really, really fortunate. Some of those days have been quite long, however, in retrospect. So on my 40th birthday, I woke up and I said to myself, what do I want to be? And I decided I wanted to be a CISO. And I gave myself 10 years to become a CISO. I literally had no executive skills, no true management skills. And I worked my way through a number of organizations to build those skills. I'd like to say it was a perfect plan. It wasn't. It turned out pretty well. I worked at NBN, built a lot of the security operations capability there. Then went over to Telstra, rebuilt the security operations center there, the internal one and the government one. And then after leaving Telstra, I went and joined Woolworths Group. And that was to take on a role 50% in Woolworths and 50% in Endeavour Group. because demerger was about to happen. They were about to peel Endeavour Group off. Peter Vandermeer, another excellent operator, gave me a break and made me CISO of Endeavour Group. So at 49 and 3 months, I hit my target, I think with a little bit of luck. And from there, I joined Endeavour Group, and that's where I've spent the last 4 years until just a few weeks ago.
Okay. So that's a lot to unpack there, but I'm just curious to know, you found your way into security from the system administration area. The way that you described those kind of superheroes who came in and fixed everything and then walked out again, square-jawed, charismatic security people. You were like, wow, I want to be one of them. How do you, what is it that makes someone right for security? How would you define that? If you had to sort of think about what the right stuff is,
Yeah,
if someone's, yeah.
I think, if I have to, if I'm hiring someone or I'm looking to bring someone into the industry from elsewhere, I think there's two key things you need to have. You need to have an engineering mindset. No matter where you work, no matter what you do in cybersecurity, it's all about solving problems. But the other one is you need to be passionate. And your passion needs to be to look after people, because cybersecurity is actually about protecting people, not companies, not data, because at the end of the data, there's a person. There's a very funny side story here where a few years ago, my daughter was going to high school, and she came home and she said, Dad, I'm doing psychology at school. And I said, oh, that's great. Yeah. She goes, I've worked you out. And I said, oh, really? After 3 to 4 hours of psychology, I was that easy to unpeel, was I? She goes, absolutely. She goes, you've got a hero's complex. You've always got to be the one to save everyone. I went, oh my God, those school fees are just worth every penny, because she nailed it.
Yeah.
I don't wear a cape, but I think that a lot of the people you see in cybersecurity today, they want to be the one to go and help, and they want to be the one to go and fix. And I think that's a great motivator for all the things that can motivate an individual to do a job.
Well, the way you described those people that came in and fixed everything, you describe them like it's like a panel from a comic book. They seem heroic in my mind when you describe them. So I think your daughter might have been very astute in her observation, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure we're over romanticizing it as it went. It's been a lot of hard work and a lot of long hours, but the outcome is great. There's no greater feeling when you've actually helped an individual get through a matter that was, cyber related.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any such thing as over romanticizing, Grant. I think we all need more romance in our lives, So like you said, it's about passion and the things that get our tom-toms beating, the things that stoke the fires of our soul. That's very crucial. So tell me about the decision to become a CISO. Apart from the heroes complex, why was that important to you? And why in your mind, was it going to take 10 years? And what was that plan? What makes a good CISO? How do you go from doing what you did to become a CISO? If you could unpack the thinking and the planning behind that.
Yeah, look, I coach a lot of young talent, and I give the same advice to pretty much all of them. I mean, there are variations on the advice, but there's some core messages. And one is put a flag in the sand. It doesn't matter if you reach that flag, it's running towards that flag. And if you want to move that flag, well, so be it. Move the flag, but you've still moved forward. So my view around cyber and being a CISO was, I'm going to put a pretty lofty challenge in front of myself. I always challenge myself. That was the biggest job in cyber at the time. It still is. So I realized, I sat down and I treated it a bit like a project. What skills do I need? Well, I need to be able to translate business speak into cyber requirements. And that was something I got from NAB, which was, as a security integration manager there. Then I went to Telstra. So that was a great opportunity for me to experience big corporate life, influencing senior leaders, budgets, finance, risk management, all key elements of a good CISO. And when I went to Endeavour Group, those things started to come together. And I'll be absolutely honest, my first year of being a CISO, I had no nails left. I lost most of my hair, and I couldn't, I was running at pace constantly. But you soon realize, and for anyone who's a CISO or being a CISO, they'll know everything's on fire all the time. My old CISO at Telstra, Baron Lortenberg, he would constantly say, "It's on fire, it's on fire, everything's on fire," and you become used to the heat, and you become used to it. You become slightly seasoned. After 4 years, very little seems to phase.
Right. Well, everyone knows that when you shout fire, fire, people pay a lot more attention than if you're being robbed or,
Yeah,
you
true,
know,
true.
yeah, that's how you get, if you're in New York and you're being mugged, that's what you do. You yell fire, fire. Everyone comes running.
Nice.
So, again, you were talking about everything's on fire. You mentioned that you you lost your nails and your hair because of all the
Yeah.
stress and so forth, which I totally understand. And look, we'll circle back to that later on because I know that burnout is a big problem in
It is.
cybersecurity, and that's something I think doesn't get talked about enough.
No.
We all know it, but perhaps it's not getting the attention it deserves. We all know it's going on, but what are people doing about it? What interested me, one of the many things that interested me about what you just said was that for you, like the CISO ship was the Mount Everest, right? It was the biggest pinnacle in cybersecurity. So that's what you just ran at. That was your
Yeah.
flag in the sand. So whatever your plan was, it was obviously well thought out because you made it to CISO in just under 10 years, right? So ahead
Yeah.
of budget, ahead of the time frame that you allocated to it. What would you say? You finished at Endeavor Group after, what was it, 4.5 years, almost
Four
5
years.
years?
4 years. 4 years.
4 years. So, what would you say are the sort of key takeaways from that period? Like, if you think about moving into your next CISO role, that's an exciting prospect because, it's a blank canvas awaiting the first daubs of paint. What do you think you'll do differently and why?
I think Endeavour is an interesting beast. It is a number of smaller businesses, or quite large, to be fair, if you look at Dan Murphy's and BWS. And you can't do cyber to a business. You've got to do cyber with a business, and you've got to get better buy-in and such. I think one of the things I'll do slightly differently is I'll learn the business much earlier. I learned it through osmosis over 4 years. I understood how the business worked by the end, or sooner than that. But I think one of the things is learn the business, learn what it is that makes the business tick, understand first principles of the business. What is it that this business needs to have happen or be operational for it to be able to trade? That's really, really important. And we actually did that in Woolworths as well, and that was a great exercise there as well. I think the relationships up are really, really important for a CISO. So you can drive technical people and product specialists to outcomes, but unless they've got the buy-in or the authority of the money makers and the decision makers, they're ducks in a pond, and you need them on board, and that needs to come from the top. So engaging higher, earlier, probably is the only other difference I do.
Okay, all right, because you've changed industry quite a lot, and I know that from my perspective in the recruitment world, often when you are working on behalf of a client or a company, they'll say, look, we want people with experience in this industry. How important is that in your opinion? I mean, you've always changed. You've moved from one industry to another. Was that ever a disadvantage? Was it an advantage because it gives you a fresh pair of eyes?
I think in the early days it was a disadvantage. Now I'm having great conversations with people because I bring diversity of thought through my own different industry experiences. Someone said to me the other day, "What industries haven't you worked in?" And I think it was aviation and transport were the two that, and mining that I hadn't worked in, sort of thing. So I've done two telcos. I've done two banks. I've done consulting, large global consulting twice, and now retail. So, but what I do know is that there's a really common thread amongst all of them. I think sometimes we like to think that cyber is a little more special than it actually is. And cyber is cyber. It's controls, it's risk management, it's relationships, and it's building talent. And you can do that anyway. I'm not flying the plane, so aviation is certainly on the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So does it, like, what the key relationships are, do they differ depending on the industry, or Are they more or less always the same? You talked about learning the business, getting close to the business. Are those people, the business stakeholders, the non-technical ones, are they the ones that you need to focus on the most? Because cyber has to, like you said, what did you put it in a way that I really liked? You said you don't do cyber to a company, you do it with a company. Was that what you said?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Look, I think that conceptually the framework is the same. You follow the money, you follow the decision makers, and those that actually have the delegation of authority to manage the risk. It's very easy for someone to over accept risk. So one of the changes that we've made historically in a number of the organizations we've been to is we've moved the risk acceptance higher up the org. And funnily enough, the tolerance for accepting risk is much lower at the higher end than it is at the lower end. So you get a better outcome. Well, I have found anyway, sort of thing. That's one area, I guess, would for me be something to focus on, regardless of where you are. But the other one too is the relationship with the board is so critical as a CISO. I had a very good board at Endeavour, and I had a little bit of exposure to the board at Telstra, not a lot. But the Endeavour board, when I first got there, they were a new board as well, so they had a new CISO and a new board. So we had to find how each other worked, and by the time I left, it was a phenomenal relationship. They could ask anything, I could certainly propose anything. But there's one stakeholder that I think is the most important stakeholder, and that's the CEO. The CEO is the captain of the ship, regardless of how you see it. You know, the board is the shipping company, but the CEO is the captain of the ship, and you've got to have a great relationship, because it's not about the tea and bickies when everything's going well. It's when everything goes bad. And when everything goes bad, the CEO has to know that they can trust you, but also you have to have faith in the choices that the CEO is going to make, because he'll be making some larger decisions as well.
Right. And what's the best way to build that trust and to develop relationships with the board? Because I think, you have those very short meetings where you have to come and present, but what are the other opportunities available to a CISO to build those relationships, both with the board and the CEO?
Yeah, so I think they're different. I think the relationship with the CEO is more of a working relationship. Send them occasional notes, let them give them the insights, give them the ability to have those elevator statements in their pockets ready to go should someone raise cyber. Cyber is such a big industry across the world, but it's so important within organizations. So you want to make sure that your boss is prepared with the key facts, the key stats, sort of thing. Don't overwhelm them. They're not cyber people, they're business people. But having some key stats and being there available to them to answer questions and explaining it, not like a 12-year-old, but, to an individual that's clearly quite accomplished to be in the role that they're in, and how to fix their business. The board, however, is slightly different. I find the board, you need to be phenomenally accurate, unambiguous with your answers. Ask the board what they want to know. I did this 2 years in. I said, I've been coming here for 2 years. You seem fairly happy with what I'm delivering, but I'd really like to get some feedback to understand what you want. And there were a couple of interesting things there, which I can't go into too much detail about, that they didn't have coverage of, that we provided in the very next update, sort of thing. So don't be afraid to ask questions. They're humans just like us.
Absolutely. And in terms of communication, I mean, I imagine that one of the great things about being a CISO is you can just be like brutally blunt and honest about everything. Is that is that a bad idea?
That's more of a character flaw for me sometimes, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But there are times when you do need to be blunt. And my last CEO explained during an incident one time, he said to me, you need to think in a universal sense, not in a planet sense. So with 28 businesses, or however many businesses are in Endeavour Group's, quite a few, each business thinks they're as important as every other business, but when you actually come down to the nickel and dime, that's not the case. And my job needed to be look after the Endeavour Group, and sometimes, you had to balance that off across, the different brands. So, understanding the order of the world, thinking holistically is probably the better way to phrase it, and just making sure you have relationships with each of the business heads wherever you're working.
Right. So you got to have commercial acumen and understand, right, who's actually keeping the lights on.
To a degree, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So, look, you've 4 years. It's in the life of a CISO, 4 years is a long time. You go through quite a few cycles. You see a lot from you see a lot through to fruition right from the beginning. Champagne and razor blades, as we often say. You mentioned your hair being on fire and things like that. How do you build a successful cybersecurity function, and how do you keep people together? How do you stop the burnout? How do you
Yeah,
preserve that healthy headspace under
yeah.
those intense,
Oh,
very stressful situations, which must often produce fight, flight? What's the third one? Fright. But you know what I'm talking
fight or
about.
flight.
Those stress responses. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're a fighter.
occasionally.
Yeah.
Often can be a flight as well. So this is kind of, if I was to say I had an area where I've done really well at, this for me is building teams and their for me, headspace is a bit of a taboo topic. We don't really talk about it. You and I have had a bunch of conversations about it over time, but it's a bit of a taboo topic. So one of the things I did at Endeavour Group when we started to grow as a team was we started a Wednesday meeting at 4:30 every week, and that meeting, that half an hour, was dedicated to how are we doing, checking in. Sometimes it was a laugh, but it was a half an hour dedicated every Wednesday. And as the team grew, I think when I left, it was about 24, 25 people. Um, it was the one meeting that everyone attended every single week. People would cancel other meetings so they could make sure that they could be at this meeting. And sometimes we do something as simple as watch a TED talk and then talk about it if I'd found something interesting. Other times we do a check-in. Sometimes we do a deep dive on an area, but not from the thing, are you doing a good job? We'll talk about the workload in the space. How can we do it differently? So I have a unique view on how I view a team, and that is I don't view it as a team. I view it as a fabric. And I think I explained this to you the other day, where if you think of a trampoline, when you push on a single point, when one point is under pressure, everything goes with it. And until the pressure is released, and then everything goes back to there. That's how we operated a team. And we had phenomenal engagement scores and um, outstanding retention rates because people found a place where they didn't have to get to a point of explosion or blow off steam because they had this tiny little safety valve every Wednesday where we got together and we talked about it. And, sometimes it was just a laugh, right? Sometimes you just need a laugh. And my old 2IC, Carmen Keogh, I let her run it one week and she introduced the ironic, what I love about my job. And it was just funny and everyone laughed. And for me,
Yeah.
it's a good way of blowing off steam, building connections, and just letting your guard down a little bit. The last part that I find phenomenally powerful, and this isn't my genius, is being vulnerable as a leader. Show people when you're hurting. Show people when you're there. If you're having a bad headspace day, we all have them. It doesn't mean you've got mental health issues. Some days are just hard, and you need a break. I would tell my team, I'm taking the day off. I'm not feeling it today, sort of thing. And we had a really low sickness rate, sort of thing,
Yeah.
physical day rate. And I had to drive my people to take their holidays because they just loved doing what they do. That, of course, became a problem in the end, but,
Yeah.
very, very lucky. So you've got to be kind to yourself and you've got to be kind to your people.
Kindness, compassion.
Mm.
What kind of woo-woo hippie nonsense is this? That's what a lot of people think about these things. But actually, people say, oh, it's nothing personal. It's just business. I would suggest that there's nothing more personal than business. We all come into this space. We spend hours and hours of our lives. We spend more time at work with our colleagues than anywhere else. We see more of them than we do of our family. If we can't be human and vulnerable and talk to these people and show them when we're hurting and be sad and be happy, and that's life, right? Like, life is not all unicorns and rainbows. It's
No,
hard. It's suffering. So
and
I really like that idea.
yeah, and I think it's really important to know too that if you know that you're going to have support when you tell people that you're having a rough time or something, it makes it so much easier. And it
Yeah.
enables you to be open and there. And you're back at work the next day, ready to kick goals and do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a release. It's a release, and we need it, right? Otherwise, we implode or explode
Yeah,
or any plode that you like.
yeah.
So, how long did you do that for? Was it just half an hour, an hour?
Half an hour every week on Wednesday,
Okay.
regardless.
And
And
people could just share anything they want. It didn't have to be
and
work related.
no, it was something. Yeah, it was. It was primarily work related, but yeah, occasionally other people shared more when that trust was really strong. Absolutely, and I think it's also important to remember that so somebody said to me once, well, they're probably just doing this because you're the boss and you've told them to do it. I went on 6 weeks secondment to Jarwin, going to work in an Indigenous organisation
I
in
remember
Chile.
seeing that.
Yeah, and it ran all 6 weeks I was away. And that's when I had a really strong insight. People wanted this, and this is the kind of environment that we need to build and grow. And we kind of stepped up a little bit.
I like it, Grant. Honestly, like my company's putting me through a leadership course at the moment, and every meeting that we do at the moment has some professional objective. But I love
Yeah,
the idea of just, hey, let's just get together, chew the fat.
yeah,
Anyone can talk. It's in a way like almost like an AA meeting in that sense. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You sit in a circle. Did you all sit in a circle? That kind of
No,
thing?
it was all virtual. You got to remember this. This gig's
Okay, of
mostly been
course.
through COVID and remote.
Okay,
It's all
okay.
virtual, but to see 20, 25 people on your screen, sitting there intently listening, no one on their
Yeah.
phones, no one typing. There was a buy-in there that I just don't think you can buy. It's cultivated. It takes time.
And that would be like everyone, the chatty ones, the ones who are a little bit more introverted and quiet. Everyone would open up and be
Yeah,
vulnerable.
yeah, and
That's awesome.
it took a little while, but I had to learn to shut up as well.
Yeah,
I do like, I'm not shy on the tooth. I can talk, and
yeah,
sometimes those awkward silences is when the smallest voice gets the opportunity to talk. So
yeah,
I needed to manage myself in the process.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. No, I love it. That's really good, and that's something I'm going to implement with my team, Grant. So thanks very much for that. What other advice would you give to any leaders in any area, not just security, to manage that burnout? Like, what else did you do that was effective? Was that enough, or were there other things that you did?
No, look, so I wrote a LinkedIn article on this a little while ago about burnout and things, and I found there's three things, and to be absolutely honest, I don't think these were my own original thoughts. These are things I've just picked up over time. But you need to have a hobby, you need to exercise, and you need sleep. And if you focus on those three things, you'll find your resilience grows dramatically, and your headspace will grow dramatically as well. For me, I worked hard on those all the time. I think you need to create habits of those things. It takes 8 weeks or something to create a habit or something. I think you told me the other day. And I think it's really important to build on each of those. So there's a thing called atomic habits or habit stacking. And you don't run
Yes.
out, you don't try and sort your sleep, your exercise, and your hobby all in the same day. You get one, you build on it, and you build on the next thing. Headspace takes time. It took a little while to build that steam up. It takes a little bit of time to undo that as well.
How do you turn your brain off to sleep well in
Oh, I
security? Like,
meditate. This
you
old burly
meditate.
character meditates. People laugh.
Yeah.
I love it. So I just use a phone app, guided meditation. And when I first started it years ago, because I'm a ex-military veteran, and not all of us sleep so well at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, it took a little bit of getting used to, and I wasn't getting to sleep. But I can honestly say it's a 13-minute piece of meditation I do. I don't think I've heard past minute 5 in quite a few years.
Nice. Nice. I like it. I like it. There we go. There we go. We should put the links in the resources
Absolutely.
when we post this for everyone. That's really, really sound actionable advice. Easy peasy. 13 minutes, and it's by the sounds of it, you won't get past the first
Well,
5 or 6.
I certainly don't. You have the odd night where you get to the end and you go, okay, what is it? You sit there. And the other thing I practice, which annoys my partner, the other thing I practice almost daily is gratitude. It builds the ability, gets your body used to releasing those good those good chemicals into your brain, and you become addicted to it, sort of thing, to a degree. So for me, gratitude is really, really important. I do it quite often.
So how do you do that? You like wake up in the morning and write down 3 things you're
It's
grateful
usually
for?
random. No, it's just random, and I'll either write it down or I'll say to my partner, "We're going to do gratitude," and she's like, "Oh, again."
Yeah.
And for me, I'll sit there and I'm grateful for this or I'm grateful for
Yeah.
that, and they can be short, sharp things, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. I love it, Grant. I love it. This is gold. This is real nuggets of gold here. So,
I sound like an absolute hippie, I have to be honest.
well, look,
I'm not
what's
really.
wrong with that? We need a little bit
True,
more.
no,
Look,
true.
you know, it's not all about hard skills. It's about
Yeah.
soft skills too, and just
Well,
being a human and enjoying life. And what are we doing it all for? Like, we got to find some pleasure in it.
100%
You
agree.
know, tell me what it's like for you. Like, as a, your life has gone from being totally crazy and very stressful, and 60 meetings a week, I think you said, to now now it's not. It's like the opposite of that. So tell me, what is it like for you? How are you approaching this unusual chapter?
Yeah, look, I wrote a LinkedIn article actually on this as a mild segue. And for me, I'm not good at doing nothing, so I haven't done nothing. I'm literally working 6 to 8 hours a day, and it might be professional development, or it might be doing a bit of coaching. It might be LinkedIn. People must be sick of me on LinkedIn already, I'm sure. But what I've done is I've turned the job hunting exercise into a project, and I run it just like a project. And I've got a CRM that maps my conversation or remembers my conversation, and it's I just not good at sitting on the couch and doing nothing. Um, the number
That's
of
good.
people,
That's a good problem to have, Grant.
yeah, it is. It is.
For a
Number
lot
of
of us, it's the
people,
other way around.
yeah, a number of people that have said to me, "Oh, enjoy the break." I'm like, "What break? When does the break start?" So for me, there are 5 things that I'm focusing on for myself: networking, people, recruiters. I do talk to other recruiters. Well, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm cheating on you.
We have an open relationship, Grant. It's okay.
People get your next job. One thing I've realized in this exercise, which you giggled at before, is that my network, I've got 6,500 people on LinkedIn. I've worked out that probably only 300 of them are of any purpose to me in this exercise, because all of my connections are peer CISOs and people in the cyber industries, and CISOs don't hire CISOs. So
No.
I've been working on my network there, building out CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, COOs, and such. So expand the network for the role you're aiming to be in next, not for your current role. It's really important. Create a routine. That's the next thing. I like a plan. I like to know. I like to have structure. So doing professional development sort of all there. Go to the gym a little more. I'm not going to say every day because that would just be a blatant lie, but
Yeah.
I am getting there more, sort of thing. And I spend no more than about 2 hours a day on one of my hobbies, because I could literally just get vortex sucked into spending my days doing my hobbies, and that doesn't help. I use the CRM. I talked about that, but that's been transformative for me. I'm far better
Yeah.
organized. I'm keeping track of things. I'm returning your phone calls, all of the things that I traditionally didn't do very well at. So that's there. So job hunt, treat it like a project, because it really is one. Being active on social media, I'm doing a lot of that. I wrote the article today, wrote an article last week. I promised myself an article a week, if I can still think of things to talk about, which I'm sure we will. Forum sort of things. That advice was given to me by Ricky Burke, to be active on social, and it's been really beneficial. And
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Something I learned recently just on that front, Grant, is that sometimes we assume that when we post something, all of our first connections see it. That's not actually true.
I'll give you a little LinkedIn tip that I learned today.
Yeah.
And that is, if you want someone to see something in particular, browse their profile before you post, and then they see it.
Absolutely.
Because it freshens the you might know that, but that was a revelation to me. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
When I worked it out. So that was kind
Big
of
time. Big time. And also another little tidbit for you while we're talking about this sort of LinkedIn 101 is when you post something and people start commenting and stuff, always make sure you comment on their comments. It gives your posts a lot more visibility.
Okay.
But yeah, it's enormous. I'm only just starting to embrace this stuff now, and I've been recruiting since 2005. By the way, Grant, you do sound like you'd be an amazing
So
recruiter.
the last one for me is, I think, the most important, and that's be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You broke up there. So the last one that I think is really important is being kind to yourself. I'm a strong advocate for mental health in the workplace and such. Job hunting's tough. You've got to be resilient. I'm going to be honest, it could be the job that equals being a CISO. A lot of people feel the absolute need to give you feedback on things that you haven't asked for or are irrelevant, but that is the internet, let's be honest. And you've quite often it's poorly delivered, which doesn't help as well. Cybersecurity people can be a little direct at times, putting it nicely. So remember, you have a community of cyber people. That's really important. Lean on them. You'd be surprised the support you'll get. It's a great community because so few people understand what we do. And I'm sure there's many other industries where that kind of insular nature exists. But for me, the cyber community is a really strong group that will help look after you when you need it.
Yeah. I think, look, Grant, listening to you talk, it sounds like you're being very proactive. I think a lot of people, when they are on the job market, they're just being responsive. They're reacting to opportunities rather than being proactive in terms of networking, posting on LinkedIn, building their brand, building their presence in the market. You mentioned networking. Now, networking is a word that fills a lot of people with fear. You know, the idea of sort of standing in a room with a bunch of people in a contrived setting and finding things to talk about is anathema. How do you go about building your network in areas where you previously didn't? You know, you mentioned CISOs, don't hire CISOs.
Yeah.
That's great. If that's not giving away the secret sauce.
No, look, and that's fine. I think there's plenty to share and plenty to go around. I've started connecting to and having conversations with CEOs, CTOs, COOs. I think it's probably a 5 or 10% response rate. I don't know if that's good or that's terrible. It's working for me. I'm just getting my name out there. I want people to think I've got a cyber problem. Oh, who's that Grant guy? I'll go find him. I talk to him on there. I just want to be present in people's lives, sort of things, or people's professional lives, not in their living room.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the first one. The second one is tomorrow I'm going to an accounting expo. I don't know much about accounting, but I got 2 free tickets to go to the accounting expo, and I'm going to go hang out with some accountants and see how they do cyber. And I'm going to try and build my brand in that space as well. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous. But I feel that accountants deep down are just like cyber people. We're a little misunderstood.
So accountants are wild. They love to party, and there'll probably be some CFOs there as well. And you know, there are CISOs out there who report into CFOs. Absolutely. You never know.
Absolutely. So
feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, I'm also building connections in the legal industry. Cyber's now moving heavily. Well, cyber's now getting a legal framework around it by proxy.
Yeah,
and a lot of law firms there. So I'm connecting with a number of lawyers as well, small law firms. There's some great people doing great work out there, and I'm just looking to see how I can maybe align with it.
Awesome. Grant, this has been a enlightening conversation. I can't believe it. We've done 40 minutes already. I would just like to ask you, I mean, that's already very full of wisdom and nuggets of advice and so forth, you know, for anyone out there who's looking to move on to the next stage of their career, whether that's into cyber or elsewhere. What would you like to share before we wrap up, and how can people get in touch with you if they want to tap into that enormous experience of yours? Pick your brains.
Look, LinkedIn's the best way to get hold of me. Connect. And I mentioned over the podcast, I'm more than happy to talk to most people. I enjoy building talent, building people. Everyone's got it in them. They kind
Yeah.
of sometimes just need it drawn out a little bit. Yeah, that's the first one. Other than that is the only thing I've learned over the last 3 weeks, well, I've learned a number of things, but one of the things that's really struck me is that cyber people are really good at talking to cyber people. We don't talk to the business outside of our thing. So my counter to that is I'm going to the accounting expo and I'm going to see how the other half lives. And I think we need to get out and about. I think we shouldn't be using our budget on cyber conferences. I think a few more of us should be at the accounting expo or the veterinarian. There's a huge conference for vets in there. Now I'm not saying that every vet needs a CISO, but what I am saying is they do need cybersecurity advice. And if you can understand the needs and um, uh, compliance issues such in veterinary, then there's a number of industries here I think that don't quite have the love yet of cyber, and they're exposed because of that. We tend to operate at the top end of town. We need to get
Yeah.
that knowledge throughout. We need to look at getting our smaller IT companies better trained in cyber because they are the cyber person as well as the guy that fixes the printer sort of thing. So I think there's great opportunity for us as a nation to grow that knowledge, to build it and to share it a little bit well. We're very good at sharing threat intel. I'm not so good think we're so good at sharing ways of working and practices.
I love it. I love it. So any cyber people listening to this tomorrow, go out there and speak to the business. Speak to someone completely outside of your domain. You never know where it could lead.
Absolutely.
I mean, ultimately, they're the beneficiaries of cybersecurity, right? They're the users.
That's why we
So
do it.
yeah, exactly. Grant McKechnie, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what happens next in your career.
Thanks, Will. It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.